Hey everyone, welcome back to Bobini Creates. My name is Jeannie, and I just wanted to have you come along while I work with some masking fluid and using the silicone brush or tool to go ahead and mask off some areas that I want to keep paint off of. I'm working today in Johanna Basford's Worlds of Wonder, excuse me. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create the night sky here on this picture. And with those little bits of stars on the moon and the trees and so forth, I thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and show you how I mask that off. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just taking just the lightest little touch to get in those little spots. Keep in mind that with the masking fluid, if it gets outside the lines, when you go over it with your paint or your ink or whatever it is you're using, it's going to mask off, that area as well. So you want to be really, really super careful to keep everything inside the lines so that when you add the paint, it's not, it's basically ending up in the areas that you want it to. Um, so anyway, that's what I'm doing here. And that little tool is cool. It looks like a paintbrush, but obviously it's just a solid sort of a um, piece of silicone or rubber um, with a pointed edge that helps me to get into those areas rather well, and you can see me kind of trying to keep my fluid inside the lines. You want to be super careful that you're not putting too much on your tool because it does kind of tend to puddle and come outside the lines. So if you're not careful, if you get too much fluid on your tool. So just continuing along with that. I did want to mention with that masking fluid that you will want to shake it up really good before you get started because it does separate. And so if your masking fluid's looking like it's kind of thick, it might just be that you need to shake it up. And the other thing I wanted to mention is it's a good idea to not leave your bottle open. You don't want to dip directly out of the bottle. You want to sort of either pour it onto a little easel, just the amount you think you're going to use, or another little container. Just because it will dry out. That's the nature of this fluid. So just be sure that you're pouring out just the amount that you think that you're going to need. You don't want to waste that. So I'm working on the trees now, and I just wanted to point out that you really don't have to mask off everything, just the top half of, in this instance, the image that's entering into the sky area so that when I, kind of swoosh my paintbrush across the top of the sky there, that it can actually go over the tops of those trees and not get any paint on them. So for example, you'll notice here in a minute, I just continue adding the masking fluid to the top part of the image, but I don't have to, for example, color the tent or anything below that because I don't intend to be too sloppy and get, paint below, that certain point. So if that makes sense, I hope it does. That way you're not wasting any more masking fluid. So I'll let you watch this and then I will catch up with you in a minute. So as you're using your applicator, you see me wiping my tool off here. That's just because it does tend to dry on the tool a little bit. So it just kind of cleans it up if you wipe it off from time to time. Eventually, when you get all done, using the tool, I would just advise to wash it with some water. Plain water's fine, or a little bit of soapy water's fine as well, and then rinse it off. But it's very easy to keep clean and nice. I used to use just my old brushes as my masking applicator, and it's really hard to get the stuff off brushes. So that's why these silicone brushes or tools are super nice because they don't stick for the most part to or they don't stick long term. Okay, and just kind of finishing up a little bit more. I'm noticing I'm using the fluid outside that circle, and I'm not applying paint, at least right now, outside that. So, but the little bit of the leaves going inside the circle, yes, I did need to mask that off. And then I just kind of go over this a little bit more in areas that I thought maybe the fluid looked a little bit thin. You'll see me kind of tapping my tool just so that I'm getting some of that excess fluid off so that I can hit those really smaller areas and not have the fluid, bleed outside the lines. And then I'm switching here. I'm showing you that I'm switching to kind of a chisel tool. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm taking care of kind of the larger area outside the circle. And don't worry, I'll get it in frame here in a second, but that is just a better tool to use for the job in this instance so that I can, have kind of broader strokes. And again, I don't need to cover too much of the area, but I do want enough to where I feel like it's going to be protected when I get to my painting eventually. So I go so far around the circle, and then I realize that if I want to do a somewhat neater job here and pay attention to detail, that I better rotate my picture so that I have just a better, easier angle, for myself. So sorry for rotating. now the fun part, and that is going in with the watercolor paint. And I show you my little paint set. It's one of the Jane Davenport watercolor sets. I don't recall which one. She has three that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure which one this was, but really I was just looking for something that was a lighter blue that I could go along the, I don't know, the horizon line, I guess, for the most part. And I got a little heavy-handed on that the first brush stroke there, but you know, it just is what it is. So I just continue painting along my merry way here with this, but I do notice as I'm going through the motions that it's starting to pill a little bit. So what you'll see is I finish up with this lighter color, and then I want it to kind of fade into darker across the top. So I did that off camera. I just wanted to kind of dry it real good and be super mindful of what I was doing so I could kind of keep the pilling to a minimum. And then, yeah, after I do that, I decide that I'll go in with my distress oxides, and I'll show you that in a minute. Um, just to deepen up the blue color, the darker blue color, I could have gone back in with my watercolors and, you know, added another layer and tried to make it a little darker. But quite frankly, I was a little nervous that it was going to continue to degrade the paper. So I used my distress oxides and finish up the page, and I end up liking the way everything looks for the most part. It just has a neat sort of a foggy look across, you know, the tree line there, which was what I was hoping for, where it's just like a softer little fade to the darker sky. And so basically that's it for the color part of it, for the inking in this instance. And then you'll see me go back in and remove the masking fluid, the dried masking fluid. And basically, it's super simple to do that. You just use your finger and kind of rub it off, and it just peels away. It kind of reminds me of like when you were a kid and you put glue on the palm of your hand and then peeled it off. It's kind of like that. It just comes off super simple. And there's something strangely satisfying about it. I don't know why I like doing this, but I just kind of do. So then after you get the majority of that off, you can always go back in with an eraser and clean up some of the little bits that, you know, didn't readily get removed, you know, in the first go round. So yeah, that's it. Oh, one thing I did forget to say is that the time between letting it dry and painting, I would probably give it a good 5 minutes, but really you can kind of just take your finger and tap on the masking fluid as it's drying and see if you think it's, you know, it's not sticking to your finger. And, you know, once you feel like it's dried enough, then go ahead and apply that paint. So yeah, that's basically the size of it. Pretty simple project. This was a lot of fun to complete. Next up is just deciding on the background and then coloring the image itself. So if you have any ideas on colors, I would love to hear, because that's always nice to know your point of view and what you would do if you were coloring this picture. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming along with me on this little venture. I'm not sure if I'll bring you back for the next step or two. That's just kind of depends on if I feel like filming or not. But anyway, I will see you on my next video. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.